Mark, this horse racing sport is not a particularly forgiving one, and one doesn't really often get a second chance to make a first impression, but your first impressions in respect of analysing the Gauteng season were right on the money as far as the Emerald Cup is concerned. The results are in the Natal witness, and you gave your guys a very handsome payday.
Yeah, it worked out nicely on the day, Andrew, with the pick six returning close to 139,000. So happy to point the follows in the right direction.
With the scratching of Master Sabina, Jeff Woodruff still has 4 runners in the race, and Alec Laird has 4 runners in the race. So the Randkiesfontein barns remain strong in terms of the complement of horses that they've got in this particular race, and they have produced the last 9 out of the last 10 winners of this race. So I think we might be on the right track.
I think so, Andrew. You know, a big thing about the Summer Cup is it's a real test of physical condition, endurance and stamina. And if you look at the honours roll, the trainers that have fared well are either champions, Mike de Kock and Jeff Woodruff in particular, or master horsemen. And I think it's very much a race where you have to focus on the skills of the conditioner, in addition to looking at all the other theoretical weight advantages and other handicapping factors.
Obviously, with Piers Strydom having just reached a significant milestone, he has often alluded to the fact that if you don't have the horse, you have no chance. And he's ridden horses like Tyson, who've been trained by Stuart Pettigrew, who might not be classified up there with Mike de Kock, but he had a supreme horse, he did the job, and there have been many other horses from Randkiesfontein. So I think probably a really good place would be to start with the Alec Laird inmates, a horse called Earl of Derby, who was seen to good avail in the Victory Moon in some rather tricky conditions. But he's the least fancied of the Laird stable, and he's the horse that seems to be progressing in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that particular race, though, was very much determined by the conditions, and Earl of Derby came from stone last, just clunked up through the slush to get up for second behind Judicial. I'm not convinced that the form of that race will hold up in the Summer Cup, unless, of course, you have a deluge just beforehand, and it turns out to be a race to suit the Mudlarks.
Earl of Derby has won from last, and Yerman sees them all, and that's quite a long way behind the leader as they go through the 1,000 metre mark. Everest has made an early move and taken over the lead. Rushmore River is second. Then comes Kalua Castle. Judicial is back in fourth, and further back to Jet Jamboree, who looks to be eased out of the race as they get into the last 300 metres. Everest is a narrow leader. Kalua Castle, Rushmore River, they together. Judicial's in the middle of the course. He's very much alive as well. Then comes Glorious Jet, but it's Judicial. Earl of Derby is starting to wear them down. Judicial got a length advantage. Earl of Derby from near last is low flying. Judicial keeps on finding, and Judicial will win the Victory Moon. Second to Earl of Derby, then came Everest, and fourth goes the way of Glorious Jet. Then came Rushmore River in a very strung out finish.
Not a sign of madness to talk about Judicial, because we know that Tyrone Zaki has come within a hair's breadth of victory in the Vodacom Durban July with Manje Manje and Grant van Niekerk, and Judicial would not be prayerless should the deluge develop, which we're hoping doesn't happen.
It's by no means a hopeless long shot. It certainly wouldn't be one of my top picks, Andrew, but I think if the conditions are right, then Judicial could come to light. It's certainly in peak form, and Mr. Zaki has really done well to maximise Judicial's career.
Okay, let's go on to As You Like now, because As You Like is a horse that a lot of people have been talking about. He is having his second run after a rest, so to speak, but then so too is the favourite, Louis the King, and Alec Laird made this point when I spoke to him. As You Like is extremely favourably handled as far as the weights are concerned, if you take a look at the classics from last year.
Yeah, 5 kilograms better off. I think that's going to be the real key. You know, there are going to be plenty of after the race merchants. People are going to say, well, Louis the King was clearly superior, a Triple Crown hero. You've got to focus on the best horse, and that's why he won. Or alternatively, there are going to be many people afterwards who might say, well, it was obvious why Louis the King couldn't win, because there were so many other horses that were substantially better off at the weights. And As You Like is one of them. He's 5 kilograms better off, which over 2,000 meters is a hugely significant pull. And it's got to be a really, really big runner. I think he'll be one of those that races handy. and may well get the run of the race from a 3 draw, and has obvious claims at the weights.
Well, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that these colours could end up in the winner's enclosure, because Chris Gerber has in fact won this race with a horse that was also beautifully handicapped on the day in Multemi, and that leads us to Besanova, who's very, very up in the weights. Whether he gets a hard run 2000 remains to be seen. I personally don't think so, but he showed a lot of courage in the Charity Mile. Extremely
gutsy. My concern is similar. I'm not really convinced that a hard run 2000 is his métier. He was wobbling a bit towards the end of the Daily News. Very gutsy. He's got a huge heart, and the manner in which he's built on those mid-year KZN performances and has run with great distinction up on the Highveld. Huge credit to him. Actually, he was my pick in that November race. I couldn't believe the 18-1 odds, and a really gutsy performance. He may well come under pressure though, raised in the weights and over the extra 400 metres, but he has to be a main candidate.
Okay, well that brings me to a horse called No Worries, for the simple reason that the last time that they met, it was a victory for Besanova. There wasn't much in it, but prior to that, in KwaZulu-Natal, everybody said that Besanova was absolutely slung in at the weights. I disagree completely, because No Worries had come down from a lifetime rating of 113 all the way down to something like 102, and I thought that as an older horse that he was particularly well weighted in that conditions race on KwaZulu-Natal Breeders' Day.
Yes, that's when he romped home and beat Distinguished. Yeah, I think also the key with No Worries, Andrew, is just how Gavin van Zyl has eventually worked out how best to race him. The blinkers, racing prominently, those are the two factors that have brought the best out in No Worries. I remember here in Cape Town, he ran an absolutely sensational race early in the season, close to Beach Beauty and Cape Town Noir, and I was convinced that he would really do well through the summer, but things just didn't pan out that way. And the stable regrouped. They have really...
I think that they had a lot of problems in Cape Town in terms of changing from Philippi to Mike Stewart's yard. I think logistically Gavin van Zyl has admitted that he had a very tough time here in Cape Town. So that perhaps is the excuse, not that one likes to make excuses.
Yeah, I think they definitely had their difficulties in getting settled in here in the Cape, but full credit to how they've run their Joburg operation. And No Worries performances have been really, really outstanding. He's fulfilled the potential of that Greenpoint run. The question mark, though, is about the distance. I'm uncertain what to make of it. In the Met, he was fading. Maybe that was due to problems with physical conditioning that you've alluded to, and difficulties in acclimatizing here at the Cape. In the Lonsdale, over 2,400, he was staying on quite well. So that makes me think that maybe he will get it. The pace, I believe, is going to be strong, because you've got Everest, you've got As You Like, you've got Bold Inspiration. All of them like to tick along and set some pretty innovating early fractions. So I don't think it's going to be a soft race, and that may just expose No Worries.
Okay, let's move on to a horse called Bold Inspiration, because he has been an absolute revelation. Charles Laird has done a masterful job with him, and I think this is a race that, if memory serves me correctly, that he hasn't won since he won it with National Emblem. I'm not sure that he's had too many live chances in the race, but this is a horse that you really can't fault.
And Charles Laird, perennially one of the high percentage barns throughout South Africa. I mean, I think there was a spell during the course of this last season where he was sending it at close to 30%, which is absolutely awesome. And he always runs horses in the right spots. He doesn't waste races with them. Bold Inspiration is interesting. His polytrack runs, he's just romped home, sort of sidled home from overmatched opposition, racing handy. I'm not sure how much we can read into that, but of interest to me is that this time last year he was racing really well at Turffontein. He beat Zanzibar Man at the course, And I think Bold Inspiration is one of those lurkers near the bottom of the scale that can certainly get into the money. And he's a proven winner. That's also very much in his favour. He's 6 from 8, which is an excellent strike rate.
So in other words, he's the horse that you leave out of any calculations, not least of all the 6 placings that V. Woodley has given us, but trifectas, quartets, bipots, definitely Bold Inspiration's got to go in.
Absolutely. It would be foolhardy to kick him into touch. He's too much of a live runner. He doesn't rank up with one of my likely winners, but I've got huge respect for Charles Laird, and a horse like Bold Inspiration can certainly get into the fray.
Well, at the risk of being argumentative for the sake of being argumentative, let's just, for fun's sake, why can't he win?
I'm not sure that he is good enough. That's the bottom line. But he is unexposed. He's only had the 8 runs, and he's entitled to make significant improvement. On what I've seen, comparing his poly efforts, his efforts earlier in his career in Joburg, he might just fall slightly shy of what it takes. But in some of my covers for pick sixes and jackpots, he'll feature on my tickets.
Let's play devil's advocate now. Do you think that there's any pressure from the ownership ranks to get Charles Laird to run him, or do you think Charles is just not that kind of guy? He runs a horse where he believes he can win.
I've spoken to Charles about this over the years, and he really likes to place horses where they're competitive, and I think I cannot imagine that he would allow his arm to be twisted. He's a senior trainer, accomplished horseman. He knows what it takes, and there's professional pride at stake. So I think he picks his spots very astutely, and he aims horses accordingly. He's a master at long-term plans. He'll pick out a race well in advance, and then he'll maneuver in such a way. Bold Inspiration 54. He's getting quite a bit of weight from those top players.
Well, he's at levels with a horse like As You Like, who's got strong collateral form at levels with Louis the King.
Yeah. So he's got to be in the mix, absolutely.
Let's get to a horse now called Boucle Top, the son of Giant's Causeway. He'll love it soft. Alec fancied him to kill in the Charity Mile. He had a perfect preparation. Smunger's jumped ship, but that doesn't really matter because he's got a very, very fine pilot aboard now, with the young exuberance of a very talented rider called Grant van Niekerk.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Grant van Niekerk. He's got flair. He is one of those rare hoops that horses run for. That's something that the Bass Yard spoke to me about some time ago, and they attracted him to the stable. And I did a number of interviews with Grant for a profile, and his burning ambition is to win a Grade 1. And I think Boucle Top's preparation has been absolutely spot on. This will be his 3rd run after rest and gelding. He was staying on nicely behind Bezanova last time. He maybe lacked the finishing kick of those top quality milers, but he's a Giant's Causeway gelding. He'll love the extra ground, and as an each way touch around 14, 16 to 1, I think he looks interesting.
Okay, let's try and draw a comparison between his collateral form with Louis the King in the classics at level weights and his run in the Charity Mile. Can he beat Louis the King the way Louis the King glided past him, giving him weight in the Charity Mile?
Fascinating debate, Vansky, because if you look at the classics, then Boucle Top is 6 kilograms better off, and he should beat Louis the King. I've always thought of horse racing not so much in terms of weight shifts, but actually how fast horses can run at different stages of the race. It's an athletic endeavor, and the champions prove that time and time again. They defy burdens because they are able to quicken up. They've got the heart, they've got that spirit, and when it counts, they are able to find many ways to beat their rivals, regardless of the burdens. Yeah, they're adaptable. And I suppose that is what many supporters of Louis the King are putting their hopes on. They're saying,
it's not 2 to 1.
Well, that's that's pretty short given all the possible knocks against him. but he does appear to be the most probable winner. But Bouclet Top is going to scare him, I think.
St. John Gray is a very, very astute trainer. He's won this race with Dance with the Devil. Far be it for us to ever suggest that Everest can polish her boots, but he's not put this horse in this race without some kind of hope and prayer. It's a big stake entry, it's a big entry to get into this race. And when he last ran against this class of horse, he seemed a little bit out of his depth in the Daily News 2000 behind Horse of the Year legislate.
Finished 4 lengths in arrears on that occasion, and even though he's lightly weighted this time round, I suspect that that's where he might end up yet again. But he does loom a pace threat, and there's always a chance in races like this that horses can, they might not necessarily get loose on the lead, as the Americans would say, but they might escape with softer fractions. So Everest is one of those that might be able to keep going to get into the money. But again, Andrew, I just don't think he's got the raw talent to mix it with the top ones.
Robbie Sage also comes from some very, very good stock, a very, very astute trainer as well. He's got the ever game, ever consistent, ever versatile Jet Bell, and he's got Sovereign Mint, the son of Judd Pot, who didn't run a bad race at all in the Charity Mile.
That was a good run, Andrew. I think it was a peak effort, in fact. Got a career best speed fig from me. Borderline grade 1, was more a grade 2 class performance. Tries further. I think he will need further improvement, but he's a smart gelding.
Did you attribute any of the interference that he may have suffered as a consequence of the loose horse Rake's Chestnut in that race to bear on his performance?
Yeah, I think so, because he is he's a nippy and sort of dexterous horse that needs to get through and quicken up, and maybe he was compromised somewhat.
Yeah, he was tight on the rail.
Yeah, I probably should upgrade his performance based on that. He's by no means a horse that you can discount, but he will definitely need to shine up by a couple of points to really get into the fray. Jet Bell, similarly, I don't think she's quite got it in her to actually win, but she is admirably consistent. She's also had an excellent prep. She's particularly versatile. She's sprinted up well. She's done fine over middle distances, and I think just by virtue of her consistency, she also has to be considered, but I wouldn't make her one of my prime candidates.
Yeah, draws a big concern. Also gain the distance for the first time. The price I'm not going to worry about. We'll just see what the result is. But he does like to kick towards the end of a race, so hopefully he stays the distance, and if he kicks, I expect him to be running on well.
I think maybe 2 of the Cape Town Raiders might just be able to stagger into the money. The one is Disco Owl. I don't think has the class to really win a grade 1, but has a nice turn of foot and a real genius of a conditioner in Joey Ramsden. Just the sort of horse when a lot of the rivals are starting to gasp, may well be able to kick on and pick up a minor share. And then if it does turn into a real test of endurance, then Waving Flag starts to look interesting. Goes well fresh, so I think it would be a mistake just to disregard its chances because it hasn't run for several months. Ran a really nice race behind Futura when coming back after a break and starting out its KZN campaign. 54 kilograms. If there's a pace meltdown and most of the others are wobbling, then Waving Flag can pick up the pieces. Again, I can't see him winning, but the sort of horse that might boost the exotics. It's been a very well conceived and carefully considered plan by the Crawford Yard. Highly professional. They've got loads of grade 1 successes to their credit, and you have to respect that. But I'm just really intrigued to see how Louis the King copes. We can pick holes in his credentials, and he does have a stiff task. But it will be fascinating to see, Andrew, if he can live up to true champion billing and overcome all of those negatives. Lumber, a heavy weight, and just blitz them late and a waiting ride from Striker Stratum.
The Gauteng Sansui Summer Cup is the power, the pace and the pulse of an esteemed legacy of thoroughbred horse racing in Johannesburg. This sophisticated social and sporting event is Johannesburg's oldest and most respected Grade 1 horse race, hosted annually at the lush Turffontein Racecourse. This year's Sansui, in conjunction with the Gauteng Tourism Authority and Racing It's a Rush, are taking the legacy of Johannesburg's premier equestrian and fashion affair to thrilling new heights. The Sansui Summer Cup itself, worth a whopping 2 million rand, run over 2,000 metres, is race 7 of the 12-race program. As class, elegance and beauty are all the core of this annual occasion, Sansui is thrilled to announce the multi-talented Dineo Moketsi as the face of Gauteng Sansui Summer Cup. After 127 years of rich heritage, this event promises to be even bigger, bolder and more extravagant than ever before. Racegoers can get close up and personal with horses and jockeys as they saddle up in the parade ring. The vibrant colours of silks and elegant fashions worn by racegoers at big meetings all add to the glamour of the event. Thanks to Racing It's a Rush, this year's Celebrity Dash, now in its 4th year, will see the winning celebrity handing over 475,000 Rand to the chosen charity, which this year is the SOS Children's Village. It is, however, last season's Triple Crown winner, the Jeff Woodruff-trained Louis the King, who will be hoping to etch his name into the pages of turf history by winning the 2014 edition of the Sansui Summer Cup.